My wife cheated on me with my boss, but the boss's wife wanted to help me, and together we publicly took revenge on them. I never considered myself the jealous type. Honestly, I always prided myself on being pretty laid back when it came to relationships. But something about Lauren's behavior over the past few weeks had started gnawing at me in a way I couldn't ignore. At first, it was small things you could easily brush off. She started working late more often, claiming she had deadlines piling up. Fair enough, I thought. She was ambitious, and her job at the marketing firm kept her busy. Then came the new clothes. Lauren had always been stylish, but suddenly, she was dressing up every day, even when she swore she was just going to the office. Blouses that hugged her figure a little more, heels when she usually stuck to flats, and a new perfume that I had never smelled before. It was subtle but different, like something you wear when you're trying to impress someone. The worst part? Her phone was always with her. We used to be the kind of couple that left our phones lying around. It wasn't a big deal. But now, her phone was practically glued to her hand. If she got a text while we were watching a movie, she'd tilt the screen away from me before answering with a quick smile and it's just work. I tried to shake it off. I told myself I was being paranoid. After all, we'd been together for nearly 3 years, and she'd never given me a reason to doubt her before. Maybe I was just overthinking things. But that gut feeling, the one that told me something was off, wasn't going away. It happened on a Tuesday night. I remember that because Lauren had come home later than usual, smelling faintly of that new perfume and looking content, relaxed in a way she never was after a long day at work. I didn't say anything, just kissed her cheek and handed her a glass of wine like I always did. We settled on the couch, half watching a sitcom while she scrolled through her phone. At some point, she got up to grab a blanket from the other room, leaving her phone on the armrest. It was face up, unlocked. I don't know what made me look. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was that gnawing feeling I'd been trying to ignore for weeks. A message popped up from a contact saved as just Jay. I miss you already. Last night was. The text cut off there, but I didn't need to see the rest. My stomach twisted so hard it felt like I'd been punched. I sat there frozen, staring at the screen like it might change, like it might turn into something harmless if I just blinked enough times. But it didn't. Lauren came back into the room, completely unaware of the way my world had just tilted off its axis. She plopped down next to me, tucking herself under my arm like nothing had changed. I didn't confront her. Not then. I wasn't the kind of guy to explode, to throw accusations without proof. My heart was hammering, my breath shallow, but I forced myself to stay calm. If this was what I thought it was, I needed to be smart. I needed to know the whole truth before I did anything. So I swallowed the lump in my throat, tightened my grip around her shoulder like nothing was wrong, and made a silent promise to myself. I was going to find out exactly what was going on. I don't know how I made it through the next couple of days without saying anything. Every time Lauren smiled at me, every time she kissed me goodnight, it felt like a fresh stab to the chest. I barely slept. I barely ate. But I knew I had to keep my head clear if I wanted the truth. So, Friday night, after dinner, I finally asked. We were sitting at the kitchen table, the remains of takeout boxes scattered between us. She was scrolling through her phone, completely at ease. I set my fork down, took a deep breath, and said as evenly as I could, "Who's Jay?" Lauren didn't even flinch. Didn't ask why I was asking. She just exhaled through her nose like I'd asked something as mundane as what was for dinner. Then, she set her phone down, met my eyes, and said it. My boss. For a split second, I almost let myself believe it was innocent. Maybe I'd misunderstood the text. Maybe. I've been dating him for 2 months. The words hit like a sledgehammer. My ears rang. My fingers went numb. But somehow, I kept my expression neutral, my voice steady. You're serious. She leaned back in her chair, completely unbothered, and let out this little chuckle, like I was a kid who had just asked something stupid. Michael, come on. Don't look at me like that. You had to know this wasn't working. I had to know. My voice was barely above a whisper, but I could feel my pulse pounding in my throat. She rolled her eyes and ran a hand through her hair, exasperated now. Look at us. You sit at home all day playing video games, watching your dumb movies. I need a real man. The way she said it, like she was doing me a favor, like I should have seen this coming. It was worse than the confession itself. I stared at her, at the woman I had loved for 3 years, and realized that she wasn't even sorry. Not one bit. I don't know what I expected when I reached out to our friends. Maybe some kind of support. Maybe just a bit of validation that I wasn't losing my mind. But what I got instead was something else entirely. After Lauren's cold confession, she didn't even bother to pretend things were complicated. She packed a bag that same night, said she'd be staying somewhere else for a while, and left without a single look back. I sat there for hours after she was gone, staring at the walls of the apartment we had shared for 3 years. Everything around me felt surreal, like I had stepped into someone else's life. The next day, I did the only thing that made sense. I texted our mutual friends. I started with Josh, a guy I had known since college, someone I had always considered a real friend. My hands were still shaking as I typed out the message. Did you know? The response came almost immediately. Yeah, man. Look, you're a good guy, but Lauren deserves someone serious. I actually blinked at the screen, rereading the words as if they might rearrange themselves into something that made sense. Deserves someone serious? What the hell was that supposed to mean? I wasn't done. I reached out to Sarah, another close friend, thinking maybe, just maybe, Josh was just being an asshole. I just found out Lauren was cheating. And everyone knew. She took longer to respond, and for a second, I thought maybe she was going to say no, that she was just as blindsided as I was. But then the text came through. We didn't mean to offend you. But maybe this is a chance to be better. To be better. That was it. That was their reaction. Not anger on my behalf. Not even disappointment in Lauren. Just some bullshit excuse that somehow, I was the one who needed to change. And in that moment, the betrayal of it all hit me harder than even Lauren's confession. She had been lying to me for months. But they had known. They had watched me sit there, completely clueless, while they covered for her. They had smiled in my face, pretended everything was normal, and not one of them had the decency to warn me. Everyone was silent. Everyone let it happen. And not a single person thought they had done anything wrong. I thought I would be angry, that I would scream, break something, demand answers. But when the dust settled, and I really let it sink in, Lauren's betrayal, our so-called friends choosing her over me, I didn't feel anger anymore. I felt done. I spent one last night in the apartment, not because I wanted to, but because I needed to get my head straight. There was no point in fighting for a place that had already stopped feeling like home. Everything in there, the couch where we had spent lazy Sundays, the kitchen where we cooked together, even the stupid framed photos on the wall was tainted now. So the next morning, I packed my things. Not in a rush, not in a rage. Just calmly, methodically, like I was erasing myself from a place I no longer belonged. By the time Lauren came back that evening, I had 2 suitcases by the door and my keys in my hand. She walked in, barely glancing up from her phone, and then paused when she saw me standing there. You're leaving? I looked at her, really looked at her. The woman I had once thought I'd spend my life with. And for the first time, I didn't feel heartbreak. I didn't feel pain. I just felt relief. I picked up my bags, stepped toward the door, and before I left, I turned back just once. Keep the apartment, I said smoothly. I'm sure your boss will help you with the rent. The way her face twitched, just for a second, was the only closure I needed. Then I walked out without another word, without another look back. And for the first time in a long time, I felt free. I had been gone for 3 days when the first message came through. At that point, I was staying at a friend's place. A real friend, someone who actually had my back. I had turned off my phone after leaving the apartment, not wanting to deal with the inevitable fallout. When I finally switched it back on, it nearly crashed from the flood of notifications. Dozens of missed calls, hundreds of messages, and every single one was about her. Lauren had launched a full-blown campaign online, painting herself as the tragic, abused girlfriend who had escaped from a toxic, controlling relationship. She didn't just say I was distant. No, that wouldn't have gotten her the sympathy she wanted. She went all in. According to her, I had humiliated her, controlled her, emotionally abused her. She even posted a tearful video, her voice breaking as she told the world how she had been too afraid to leave until she met someone, her boss, obviously, who showed her what real love looked like. The comments were flooded with sympathy. You're so strong, Queen. I always knew something was off about him. You deserve better. Even our mutual friends bought into it. Josh, the guy who told me Lauren deserved someone serious, he commented, we always knew something wasn't right. Proud of you for walking away. Sarah, the one who told me this was my chance to be better. She reposted the video with a caption about believing victims. I sat there, reading through all of it, and I felt nothing. No anger. No urge to defend myself. Just disgust at how easily people swallowed her lies. She had cheated, lied, humiliated me. I had barely settled into my new place when the messages started flooding in. Dozens of missed calls. Hundreds of notifications. At first, I thought it was some mistake, maybe spam, maybe some glitch. But then I saw the names. Josh, Sarah, even old co-workers I hadn't spoken to in years. And then I saw her. Lauren. She had gone full victim mode online. Tear-streaked videos, dramatic posts, comments overflowing with sympathy. She wasn't just twisting the truth. She was completely fabricating a whole new version of events. He controlled me. He humiliated me. He was emotionally abusive, and I was terrified to leave. The comments were full of heart emojis, people praising her for being so brave, and mutual friends, our friends, backing her up. Sarah, We knew something was wrong, but we didn't want to interfere. Stay strong, girl. Josh, we always knew you deserved better. It felt like watching some sick social experiment. How quickly people would rally around a fake sob story just because the person crying the loudest looked pretty on camera. For a moment, I considered fighting back, posting proof, screenshots, calling out the hypocrisy. But then I stopped myself. People wanted to believe her. Nothing I said would change that. So I let them have their story. I ignored the messages, blocked the calls, and went on with my life. Or at least, I tried to. Because 2 nights later, I got a message from someone I never expected. Emma, Lauren's former best friend. The one who had distanced herself from our group a year ago, without much explanation. Her message was simple. We need to talk. Now. I hesitated, but curiosity won. We met at a quiet cafe, and she got straight to the point. Jay isn't just her boss. I frowned. Yeah, I figured that part out. She shook her head, lowering her voice. No, Michael. He's married. And his wife? She's powerful. Her family owns half the damn city. My stomach twisted. So? Emma exhaled sharply. So, you're not the first guy Lauren's done this to. The last one, he disappeared after things went south. I don't know the details, but trust me, you need to get as far away from this as possible. I leaned back, trying to process what she was saying. Disappeared? It sounded too insane to be real. But looking at Emma, the genuine concern in her eyes, I knew one thing for sure. Lauren's betrayal was just the beginning. Emma leaned in closer, her voice barely above a whisper. Jay isn't just her boss, Michael. His wife is powerful. Her family owns half the damn city. I frowned. Yeah, okay. And Emma exhaled sharply, looking around like she was afraid someone was listening. And Lauren's not new to this. You're not the first guy she's done this to. The last one, he disappeared. I blinked. What do you mean disappeared? She pressed her lips together, hesitating, then finally said, I don't know exactly what happened. But there was another guy before you. Same story. She was with him, then suddenly she wasn't. Jay came into the picture, and next thing you know, the ex just vanished. No social media, no calls, no texts. Like he was wiped off the map. And you know what's weird? No one even questioned it. It was like he never existed. A cold shiver crawled up my spine. And you think, what? That something happened to him. Emma looked me dead in the eye. I think you should get out while you can. I think you should stop talking about Lauren. Stop looking for answers. Just move on. Because if Jay's wife finds out about this little affair, she won't go after Lauren. She'll go after you. I sat back in my chair, my pulse hammering in my ears. I wanted to call bullshit. I wanted to laugh it off as paranoia. But the way Emma looked at me, nervous, serious, genuinely afraid, made it impossible. Lauren had betrayed me. My friends had abandoned me. But this was something else entirely. I thought I was just dealing with a cheating ex. But now I wasn't so sure. A few days after my meeting with Emma, I was still trying to process everything. I had been cheated on, betrayed by my so-called friends, and now, apparently, I was tangled up in something much bigger than I ever imagined. And then she messaged me. It was late at night when my phone buzzed with an unknown number. We need to talk about my husband. That was it. No introduction, no pleasantries. Just a single, cold sentence that sent a shiver down my spine. I stared at the message for a long moment before replying. Who is this? The response came almost immediately. You know who I am. Meet me tomorrow at the Blackwood Hotel Lounge. Noon. I didn't sleep much that night. Every part of me was screaming that this was a bad idea, that I should just walk away. But my curiosity was stronger. So the next day, I went. The lounge was the kind of place where high-powered people had quiet conversations that could ruin lives. Dim lighting, velvet seating, the scent of expensive cigars lingering in the air. And there she was, Mrs. G. She was beautiful in that effortless way only truly rich women could be, graceful, poised, with sharp eyes that could slice through you like a knife. She looked up as I approached, gestured for me to sit, and then, without missing a beat, said, I assume you figured out my husband is sleeping with your ex. I swallowed. Yeah, I got that part. She nodded, stirring her tea slowly, like this was just another business meeting. Good. Then I'll get to the point. I'm gathering evidence. I want a clean divorce, full control of our assets, and I want him to pay. I blinked. Okay, and where do I come in? She finally looked at me, her lips curling into something that wasn't quite a smile. You're my proof. You were with Lauren when it started. You know when the affair began, how they acted. You can help me connect the dots. I hesitated. And what do I get out of this? She leaned in slightly, voice softer now. Protection, influence, and, most importantly, revenge. My stomach twisted. This was insane. This wasn't just about a breakup anymore. It was a war. But as I sat there, looking into the eyes of a woman who was just as betrayed as I was, I realized something. I wasn't just a victim in this. I had power. And for the first time in weeks, I wasn't just going to sit back and let them win. The night of the corporate party was buzzing with energy, soft jazz playing, waiters weaving through the crowd with champagne flutes, executives shaking hands over million-dollar deals. It was the kind of event where people smiled through their teeth, where reputations were made or destroyed in an instant. And tonight, destruction was on the menu. Mrs. G had planned everything meticulously. She wasn't just looking for a way out. She was looking for revenge. And I was more than happy to help. I stood near the back of the ballroom, watching as the night unfolded. Lauren was there, of course, dressed to impress, clinging to Jay's arm like she belonged there. She laughed, charmed, played the perfect supportive girlfriend, completely unaware that this was her last moment in the spotlight. Then, right at the peak of the evening, the lights dimmed. The giant projector screen, which had been cycling through generic company slides, suddenly flickered. The music softened. The chatter died down. And then, the messages appeared. One by one, line after line, word for word, Lauren and Jay's private conversations were displayed in massive, crystal-clear resolution for everyone to see. He's such an idiot. Honestly, I don't know how he hasn't figured it out yet. Ugh, I hate pretending to care about his stupid hobbies. At least you're a real man. Once your wife is out of the picture, we can finally live the life we deserve. Don't worry about Michael. He's nothing. The room froze. Gasps. Murmurs. A sharp intake of breath from somewhere near the front. I shifted my gaze to Jay. His face turned a deep, furious shade of red, his jaw tightening as he realized what was happening. And then, Lauren. I had seen her fake every emotion under the sun, but nothing could have prepared her for this. The blood drained from her face, her eyes darting frantically around the room. No, this isn't. This is fake. Someone hacked. But the messages kept coming. There were screenshots of her talking about sabotaging coworkers, using Jay's influence to push certain employees out, playing people against each other. Her manipulation. Her lies. Everything was out in the open. The whispers turned into hushed laughter. People exchanged knowing glances. Some pulled out their phones, already recording. Lauren turned to Jay, her voice desperate now. You believe me, right? This is some kind of setup. Jay didn't respond. He was too busy staring at his wife, standing at the edge of the crowd, arms crossed, watching with cold satisfaction. And then Lauren snapped. She let out a shriek, knocking over a champagne glass as she whirled around. Who did this? But nobody answered. Even our so-called friends, Josh, Sarah, the ones who had been so quick to turn on me, were quietly inching toward the exit, trying to disappear before the storm fully hit. I stood back, watching it all unfold, a glass of whiskey in my hand. By the time security stepped in, Lauren was full-on hysterical, screaming at people who wouldn't even look her in the eye anymore. Jay. He had already slipped away, his career in flames, his future hanging by a thread. And Mrs. G? She just smiled. The queen had played her final move. Lauren's downfall wasn't immediate, but when it hit hard. Jay was the first to go. Within 24 hours of the corporate disaster, his career was over. His wife had been waiting for this moment, and she didn't waste a second. Lawyers swooped in, assets were frozen, and the board of directors quickly distanced themselves from the scandal. By the end of the week, Jay had been quietly fired, his name erased from company records like he had never existed. Lauren thought she could survive it. She thought she could talk her way out, spin the narrative. She was dead wrong. The leaked messages spread beyond the company, beyond our social circle. Soon, people outside even her reach were talking. The woman who had spent years manipulating, backstabbing, and lying suddenly found herself on the receiving end of it all. Her so-called friends? The same ones who had turned on me so easily? They vanished. Josh and Sarah, who had been so eager to call me the problem, went full ghost mode. Not because they had grown a conscience, but because they were terrified she would drag them down with her. And Lauren? She had nothing left. No job. Companies weren't eager to hire someone whose dirty laundry had been aired for the entire industry to see. No friends. Anyone who had stood by her was now too busy saving themselves. No reputation. Everywhere she went, people whispered. I should have been satisfied with that. I should have just moved on. But Lauren wasn't done. It was a Thursday night when she showed up at my door. She looked different. Her usual polished appearance was gone. Her hair was a mess. Her clothes weren't perfectly put together. But her eyes? They were still full of that same venom. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. You lost something? She let out a sharp laugh, shaking her head. You think this is over? I didn't answer. She reached into her bag, pulled out a flash drive, and held it up. I have things on you, Michael. Things you don't want out there. I raised an eyebrow. Oh, let's hear it. Her smirk faltered. She had expected panic, anger, something other than amusement. You know, it's funny, I said, shaking my head. You still think you have power. You still think you can win. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. Destroy whatever you want, Lauren. It'll only hasten your end. She stared at me, blinking. I smiled. Go ahead. Post whatever you think you have. But let's be real. You're already drowning. What's another brick? For the first time, I saw it. Fear. Not anger. Not defiance. Fear. Because she knew. She knew she had nothing. No more allies. No more lifelines. Lauren had spent her entire life playing chess, using people, ruining them. And now? Now she was just another discarded piece. Mrs. G didn't waste time. With all the evidence stacked against him, Jay didn't stand a chance in the divorce. His wife took everything, his properties, his accounts, his reputation. She didn't just win, she obliterated him. Within weeks, he was bankrupt, his once powerful connections vanishing like smoke. The last I heard, he was trying to start over in some no-name town, scrambling for scraps of the life he used to have. Lauren didn't fare much better. After that night at my door, she disappeared. Her social media accounts, once overflowing with curated perfection, went dark. No updates, no posts, nothing. It was as if she had been wiped off the internet completely. I didn't ask questions. I didn't care. She had spent years manipulating her way to the top, and now? Now she was nobody. And our so-called friends? Josh, Sarah, the rest of them. One by one, they started reaching out. Friendly texts, casual check-ins, pretending they hadn't completely abandoned me when it mattered. Hey man, crazy how things turned out, huh? Hope you're doing well. We should catch up soon. No hard feelings, right? I didn't respond. I didn't need to. They had made their choices. And now, so had I. I had walked away from all of it. The betrayal, the games, the fake friendships. And for the first time in a long time, I was finally free. Life moved on. And so did I. In the months that followed, everything changed. I got a promotion at work, one that I had been overlooked for back when Jay was still pulling the strings. It turned out that when you remove toxic people from your life, doors start opening on their own. With the raise, I moved into a new apartment, one that was completely mine. No ghosts of the past lingering in the corners, no memories of whispered lies or stolen glances at hidden texts. Just a fresh start. I took my time healing. There was no rush, no desperate need to fill the space Lauren had left. But eventually, I met someone new. It wasn't fireworks or an instant whirlwind, no grand declarations or sweeping gestures. It was simple, real. She didn't play games. She didn't hide her phone. She didn't make me feel like I was less than. And for the first time in a long time, I let myself trust again. People always say revenge is sweet, that getting even is the ultimate win. But after everything that happened, I realized something. The best revenge isn't destroying other people's lives. It's living your best life.